Jim? Okay. Welcome to the April 5th, 2023 meeting of the Municipal Building Commission. We are meeting in the Zito Room at Attleboro High School. Call the meeting to order at 5:30. We've got a lot to do in a short period of time before we begin the interviews. First order of business is to establish the quorum. So for the record, we have Terry DeSisto, Ed Stanton, Jackie Romanicki, Gail Clark, Jerry Freecott, Andrew Acosta, Jay Allard, and myself, which gives us a full house because Mike Tyler has resigned, and also from the school building committee. So the mayor is here with us tonight, and so if there's anyone out there in the public who is interested in serving, please send a letter to the mayor. That way, all of the 8 or 10 people who watch us might be interested and might send a letter. Next thing is we have minutes from March 1st and March 29th that are ready to be approved. You all received them by email. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, I'm going to skip over the bills for the minute, and we have Mark Zawatsky with us remotely. So Mark, you want to talk to us about the police station roof project?
Certainly. I submitted a response to an RFP request. Our firm was selected to provide construction consulting and clerk of the work services, and we're awaiting signature and a purchase order. We're ready to begin and move with velocity to assist the city in addressing its water infiltration issues at the police station building located at 12 Union Street. I will note that the building issues are somewhat similar to that at the fire station headquarters just down the street, in that there appears to be water infiltration from both the roof as well as the masonry veneer. So I have reached out in anticipation of receiving the contract and a purchase order. I've asked for some general information from the building official that does not appear on the tax assessor records because the entire city hall complex is not necessarily viewed the same way that a single residential or a business is listed. So I'm awaiting. I'd like to move with velocity to assist the city in writing the RFP, actually an RFQ for designer services, and oversee the design process through the spring, summer, and then have a contractor procured for the late fall, and hopefully, just hopefully, we can have these issues attended to prior to the end of the year or the setting in of winter. I will note that while this project is very similar in size and scope and scale and depth and breadth to the fire station, we started that process nearly 2 months earlier and didn't finish it until mid-December. So I'm concerned that a portion of the construction phase may in fact linger, or all of the construction phase may linger into the spring of 2024, which I know is not desirable, which is why I'm anxiously awaiting authorization to proceed in earnest.
Okay, good, because I think that choosing a designer and coming up with a design and a cost estimate is going to be important. We have about $250,000 that was appropriated all in, but that includes you, that includes the designer, that includes the construction, and I am concerned as to whether that will be enough money or not.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that it will not be, just based on the area of the roof that I am aware of from Google Earth and other research. So the cost of roofing materials, the cost of labor during the last several years has increased dramatically. It used to be that a complete removal and replacement of roofing, just a few years ago, was $18 to $20 a square foot, and then it was $25 to $30, and now we're looking well over $40 a square foot. So this project will not be able to be done all in for $250,000. Either the roofing or the masonry aspects of it, should the city decide to handle it in one comprehensive award or package, or if it's done piecemeal.
Which is why we need to get the designer on immediately, because we need to get some cost estimates so that the mayor can understand the scope of what we need. And
Understood.
And of course, as with all of these projects, this is another crisis intervention. And so getting it done quickly is extremely important. Anything
We're
to
ready
add,
to
Mayor?
go.
No, Molly, do you know anything about where the PO is at this point?
I don't, but I believe it would be ready to be issued. Carol was just out today,
Okay.
so I don't think that will take long.
All right, I'll follow up on it tomorrow when I get in the office.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else on this project, Mark?
No, thank you for allowing me to proactively discuss it.
And I don't see it on our agenda because we have so many things that we must have missed it, but any update on the gym floors? And I don't know if Arno's with us.
He is. Arno is here. Before Arno speaks, he can talk about the contractual elements. In anticipation of the contractor mobilization, I sent an email today, which I copied you as the chairperson of the Municipal Building Commission on, asking for the contractor to confirm their detailed schedule, which per our meeting in the mayor's conference room about just over a month ago, we discussed mobilization in the afternoon of Friday the 14th of April, and immediately after the kids are dismissed. The contractor previously indicated he would work on Saturday the 15th, work the entirety of the school vacation week, the school vacation week, except for Patriots Day the 17th, and then work continuously while children are in the school, isolated within the confines and the four corners of the gymnasium until completion, which they affirmed would be prior to Friday, May 5th. During that time, I've identified that the school will need to make alternative arrangements for outside play rather than interior gym usage. We've also discussed contractor parking, mitigation of odor, and all the other concerns that are associated with work going on in a school filled with children, especially elementary school kids. So I'm waiting for the contractor to confirm that. Now, I do know that change order one, a credit of $94,000, has been fully executed, and that there was a requisition. I believe that's either already voted on by the MBC or prior, and Arno can talk about the status of change order two, which is additional line strengthening at each of the two school gyms pursuant to the request of the gym teachers and the staff.
Yes, so we've issued the change order for the additional floor painting, or game line painting, and that's been issued to FJ Roberts. We're just waiting for their signature, but it's for the amount that was agreed upon and for the scope that was agreed upon.
The amount that we talked about at the last meeting, correct?
Yes.
It's $7,360, yes.
Okay. So is there any action we need to take tonight, or is it just thanking you both for your update?
We'll take an attaboy.
Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any questions or any member of the Municipal Building Commission for us with regard to either of those projects?
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we have two projects for the water department. One is the temporary PFAS fix, which is like a 3-year fix.
Yep, till the permanent.
And then the permanent one will be following. So we got a memo from Courtney Allen that identified the fact that this project is now at the state waiting for approval. And once it's approved, we will then be participating as the overseer of the project to help Courtney out to execute that. And then when the final design comes through, again, we will probably play a role in that. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, then for the Attleboro Pawtucket Interconnect, we got a schedule today that shows a bid opening on June 8th, which is the day after our June meeting. So I asked her if that could be pushed up a day so that we could get the results for that night. So stay tuned, but it looks like our June meeting, we will have the bid results for that. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, the Municipal Facility Assessment Study. Molly, you're telling us that that's going to be ready to hit the street?
We're working on it. That's our goal, 28th. So.
And then what we'll need to do is to finalize the dates that you put in that so we know what day we're receiving the responses, so we can shortlist and then we can set up an interview schedule. And that is the study that we need to complete by January of all of the city buildings, with the hope that we will avoid things like the crisis replacements of Willett roof and police station roof. That seems to be our norm. Or at least we'll have the information. Next, the Council on Aging feasibility study. We are scheduled to meet in City Hall next week at this time. And the only thing on the agenda that night will be the update from David Eisen as to what they've been doing. I don't want to put you on the spot, Mayor, but how are we doing in getting a new Council on Aging director?
Interviews start, I think tomorrow, no, Friday.
Good,
Yep.
excellent. Because we certainly want to make sure the director has input in what we're doing. But there is a bit of good news in the sense that the city solicitor has said that Article 97 does not apply to Highland, so Highland is in play as a potential landing site for the Council on Aging building. And we're also directed him to look at the Richardson School. And I'm not sure if there's a third site at this point. I think those are the top two
Yeah, I
candidates.
think at the moment, yep.
So that's where we are on that. And then the the public safety building, April 26th, is a meeting at City Hall, and that will be the topic that night, also at 5:30. Police and fire chief have both confirmed that they will be available, so we will spend our hour or so that night at City Hall, understanding where we are on that project and trying to see what we can do to push that project to completion as well. So those are the things that are pending right now. And Dale, do you think that somebody might be in the back hallway waiting for an interview? Thank you for looking. In the meantime, we have a bill for the port construction for the gym flooring for $1,350. Molly, is that in order to be paid?
Sorry, what was that?
Is the bill for port construction for $1,350 in order to be paid?
Yes.
Okay. And then we also have a bill from Socotec for $9,531.52. That's in order to be paid?
Yes.
Okay. And then also from Castle Booze for the public safety needs assessment for $21,850. So all of those are ready, correct?
Correct.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on those bills? If not, a motion is in order.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, so We now have the first candidate for the Willett Roof Designer, which is Rouse Architects. There is a connection there if you brought a laptop and wish to put something up on that screen. And please introduce yourself. What we generally do is give you about 20 minutes to make your presentation, basically why we should hire you. And then we'll have about 10 minutes usually for questions. When we are finished with all 3 interviews, we will deliberate, we will vote, we will make a recommendation to the mayor. If you want to find out how you did, you can call Molly tomorrow, and she will tell you if you finished first, second, or third. So with that having been said, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So I'm Brittany Grant from Rouse Architects. I'm the vice president of the company and one of our project architects.
I'm Andrew McKean from also Rouse Architects. I'm one of the senior architectural designers.
Just remember to keep your voice up because the acoustics in this room are terrible because we're waiting for the acoustic panels for the back of the room.
Always last to come.
Yeah.
Understood.
So go right ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're from Rouse Architects. We're located right in Foxborough, so close by. We have over 35 years of experience as a company, doing lots of municipal, public, and school buildings. It's kind of our wheelhouse is kind of the public realm. We really see the benefits benefits we can give to communities by doing public work. Like I said, I am Brittany. I will be the project director on this assignment. I will be overseeing the larger picture of the project, reviewing all of the drawings before anything goes anywhere. I'm also MCPPO certified for school building projects, so I'm very familiar with the public bidding procedures, Chapter 149, and I'm very capable to handle that for your district.
Again, my name is Andrew McKean. I'm the architectural designer. I would be the job captain for this project in particular. I would be the day-to-day point person, working directly with Brittany on the design half, all the way through construction administration of this project. I've been with the company for 10 years. I've been an architectural designer for 12 years now, and a job captain at the office for more than 6.
So on our team, we carried a structural engineer so that we can make sure the existing structure of the building can support any work being done. They can assess the existing structure, as well as a certified roof design consultant. We've worked with Andrew Gould for several projects. A lot of our roof replacement projects he's been involved with, and he has some great recommendations and assessments.
This is just a quick slide on some of the most recent project experience that both Brittany and I have been working on together. In particular, we've been doing a lot of work with the Department of Youth Services of Massachusetts. I personally just recently completed the Metro Youth Services Central Roof Replacement in Boston. It was approximately 40,000 square feet. It was an EPDM roof system. We upgraded it to code. We increased the parapet size to account for the energy code, to put in a new insulation system, as well as a cool roof TPO system on the roof. Currently, we have the Grafton Campus Maintenance Building under construction. We've also worked recently with Springfield, the building actually in the northeast corner there. We did a window replacement and masonry repointing job with them. Both those projects were on time and on budget. There's a few others listed below that are of the similar scale to that. Sorry.
So we've also done a good deal of work with the King Philip School District. Last summer we did a partial roof replacement at their high school. It was a summer slammer project where we were able to get the drawings done ahead of time, get the contractor on board as soon as possible, and we're able to have the roof replacement start up as soon as school ended, and they were finished before school started that fall. For them, we were also currently working on their media center renovation. They're kind of taking what was their library into a more 21st century learning style with collaborative spaces, more current uses for the school. We're also working on some security vestibules for their district as well.
Listed here is a project of similar scale to the Thomas Willett School, is the Newport Police Station. I apologize, not the same scale, however, the same condition where we're using both asphalt shingle system as well as an EPDM system. It was completed in 2018. It also included an energy study to increase the insulation on the roof to meet today's energy code standards.
And then we have a house doctor contract with the DHCD in Massachusetts. So for them, we've done several roof replacements for many of the complexes throughout the state for their public housing. Some of them have been the North Attleboro, Seekonk, Attleboro. We've gone out to Nantucket for them. So that's been a great contract to have, to see, how really analyzing the building envelope, seeing how we can address the issues that are happening in the building themselves.
And this is also included in our proposal, but this is just a list of some of the more recent projects over the past 10 years, also included of roof replacements specifically that run the gamut from TPO to asphalt to PVC, EPDM, ballasted roofs throughout New England, anywhere throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island. One of the larger ones to note, and the most recent, would be the Newport School District. We did the Rogers High School, buildings A through D, which was a very large undertaking, and it was a mix of all different types of roof systems. Again, completed on time and on budget.
So to jump into a little bit more of our Chapter 149 experience, I'm familiar with, putting together the specifications, working with the department to make sure we're getting all of your front-end requirements in there, covering the general conditions, and setting up the documents to properly handle any file subbids, and the whole process of the public bidding. We will put the drawings out to bid, publicly posted Central Register, combis, and work with the department to make sure we're meeting all of our deadlines. This is just a small list of some of the projects we've done recently. The Cape Cod Collaborative and Sandwich School Departments are some really great groups that we've been working with. These were not roof replacements necessarily, but they were working with the school department to work out their new administration office, as well as a complete renovation of an existing school. So to jump into your project, we see this, it's a quick timeline, but I think it's doable to get it done this summer. We see, 2 to 3 weeks for the initial investigative design work. We would go out to the building, really investigate the existing conditions, draw up the footprint of the building, and work through the drawings, bring out our roofing consultants to take a look at the space. And then we would move into the final design documents. That would be a complete package ready to put out to bid. From there, we would work through the bidding procedures that I've already described, and then work through construction administration. As a firm, we take a very hands-on approach to the construction administration side of a project. A firm can go through, we can do the design, but the client relationships and the relationships with the contractor really matter during construction. A successful project really, the outcome needs the involvement all the way through. We feel that's a better way to work with our clients. So we'll be there every weekly meeting. We'll review all the submittals, answer RFIs, and get our requisitions resolved in a timely manner so the project stays on track. This is just a visual of the schedule that we had talked about. So this, so we have about 2 weeks for the preliminary investigation and early schematic drawings, and then 3 to 4 weeks for the detailed documents, putting together the package. We have the staff available to meet these deadlines, and we feel comfortable with that. Moving forward, we allotted 5 weeks for bidding, just so that if there's we have to have an addendum, or making sure we have enough time for all the any file subbids that might arise. And then we have construction being completed in August. So we see this as doable.
This schedule was completed based on the narrative that was provided to us with the May 11th deadline for bidding. Obviously, we're trying to get this done as a summer slammer to be able to have the roof on the school before September, I'm assuming, for school start. Right now, based on our aggressive schedule, we've allotted for 8 weeks of the construction and closeout portion of the project to be completed around August 10th. That gives us some time and window in case there's any type of creep for whatever reason, be that in design development or in construction, if there are any type of delays.
Or any unforeseen conditions during construction as well.
I suppose the weather would affect you as well.
Yes.
For the roof, partially. Yes.
Definitely. But luckily in the summer, we usually don't have too many hiccups, you know, some rainstorms, but nothing like winter, so.
Roof construction goes very quickly though, as well. And once they get that roof off, they're hot and heavy to get that back on. It doesn't matter if it's a residential or a commercial, especially with an asphalt shingle roof system. Once they're up there and ripping shingles down to the bare construction and finding out what that substrate is, all their replacement is done within the same day typically. And they have ice and water shield up typically by halfway to mid-end of the day, depending on how large per section that they work. We would phase the project around. Obviously, it's multiple different pitches on this roof and different eaves, so it would be phased through.
So just a little, our internal quality control, we take very high priority in this. We'll print out check sets within our office, redline the drawings frequently to make sure everyone who's working on the drawings is on the same page. And the same thing with any consultant drawings that we incorporate into the set. And then we are very involved with our construction administration. So a little closeout statement about, you know, our what we find really important is having consistent coordination, communication, and schedules. I think that is really the key to a successful project. Having an open dialogue between the contractor, the client, making sure, you know, everyone's working together as a team. It's kind of one of our driving factors. So it's kind of a quick spiel, but any questions we're very happy to answer. Have a dialogue.
So I'll start with a question. As you acknowledge, this is an aggressive schedule. It would be nice if we were out to bid now. Do you anticipate that we will get a competitive bidding climate with contractors interested in this job, given the compressed time schedule and the fact that they are already planning for summer?
I think that there's definitely people who are going to have the availability to be competitive on this schedule. I think I've seen roof replacements, they have a quick turnaround. The ones that I've had gone out to bid, it's typically, you know, we go out to bid, you accept the competitive bidding, and then they're usually ready to start pretty quick as just kind of a general practice for roofs. So I think with the scope of the project, I don't think you're going to have any trouble with that.
The biggest delay that we've seen currently with any type of construction, not necessarily who the contractor is, it's the supply of materials. And that more so lately for us, we've been finding has been the insulation for flat roofs. And it's more so for an EPDO or EPDM type roof system. Because it's an asphalt shingle pitched roof, we haven't seen any supply issues currently. With regards to the most I've seen is color in particular, which most people are quite flexible with that. Certain colors, for whatever reason, the backlots on those are out. So.
And would you expect that a contractor would have multiple crews working at once? Have you thought about that?
I think that would be the most efficient way to get the building re-roofed. They could have, you know, a group working in one section and a group working in another. I think their general practice would be to only remove what they can replace that day, though, so there wouldn't be any real issue.
That would be something we could also look at once we have the drawings in hand, looking at phasing the project within the same time schedule from one corner to the next, depending on if they have multiple crews working on both wings, working in towards the center, or moving around in piece by piece, same as Brittany had just mentioned. They typically don't remove anything unless they can put it back before the end of the day, at least to an ice and water shield. Additionally, because there will be waste coming off the roof at the same time of demolition, they like to chase where the dumpsters go and follow around a roof in a certain pattern. Again, that can all come through as part of both the bidding and in our own construction documents. We can suggest the approach. So it is feasible.
And Jeanette, do you have any questions?
I sure do. My name is Anjanette Calso. I am the program manager for Skanska. We're the owner's project manager. I see you have some pretty significant shingle experience, which is great. Have you actually been over to the school to take a look at it?
We looked at photos of it on Google Maps, kind of looking over there. I don't think we had a
We
chance
haven't
to
visited
drive
it yet,
over
right.
there.
Okay, and my question would be if there's anything that you saw that gives you pause, like, you know, any of the conditions as far as access or anything like that, that may impact, I don't know, any part of the design or whatever. So that was my first question. As far as managing the, well, let me take a step back. You are working with a roof consultant, correct? Who will be developing the drawings? You work in conjunction with him, and I'm just wondering, like, when we are trying to get this biddable set of documents out, if you're working together, and so that is a very mainstream process, or does he give you something, you review it? I know you said you're constantly redlining and reading the drawings and whatnot, and I'm just, that's my question. How does that process work with the consultant?
We're the designer. We would be drawing
Okay.
drafting up the drawings.
Right.
The consultant would be advising us. We would be bouncing questions off of him in particular. Typically, he would put together a narrative when we were out there doing our field investigation, as well as our structural engineer.
Okay.
If they see any deficiencies or anything that needs to be noted or attended to, they would advise us. In the past, I've sent Andrew Houle a set of details that say, does this work properly? Do you think the ventilation's correct? Can you bounce back for me? And within 24 hours or less, he sent something back to us, either redlined or yep, good to go, and we carry along. But we don't allow that to take a pause in our construction documents while we work through. It's also where we don't want to see them as much, that's an addendum if needed. For whatever reason, it's not going to pause the construction document to get it out to bid.
Right.
If we have to add something after the fact, it's always feasible.
Okay, and then as far as managing the procurement, will you write the RFP?
Yes,
That's-
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then the other questions, just the management, the oversight. I know you said you'd be available for weekly progress meetings and whatnot. We are required to have a presence every day anyways, but what's your, typically on a roofing project, especially Summer Slammer, is it, do you plan on stopping by a couple times a week? I understand you'd be available at a phone call or an email, but do you have somebody that is specifically, I assume that would be you?
Myself or Brittany. So
Right.
Brittany
Right.
runs both offices. She's primarily working out of the Mass. I'm in the Rhode Island one. It's in both our backyards.
Right, right.
I'm working in East Providence. She's working right up in Mansfield, Foxborough. I live in North Providence, and she lives in Seekonk. So we're very close.
So you're super available.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other question I had was just the schedule, because it is, it's tight, especially now trying to get the documents out to bid, and that was the other thing I wanted to ask, is if you have any reservations about getting, a biddable set of documents out there and getting enough interested GCs or roofers to, submit a proposal.
Yeah, so for our firm and ourselves, I don't see any problem hitting the schedule. We have the staff available to get the drafting done, get out there immediately and do our field investigation. And I don't think we'll have trouble getting a contractor on board. From our experience, they expect kind of quick turnarounds. So I think going out to bid now, I think we would have a competitive bidding.
Okay, and so the last question, and then I'll let Bob speak, is there was two components to it. So there was also the window repair and whatnot. And I don't know if is there any concern about that scope of work as far as, you touched on the shingles not being an issue as far as availability goes, but we'd have to go out and look and see exactly what the scope of work is. But if there's, say a window replacement or something that has to happen, are you concerned about any of that as far as procurement goes? What have you seen as it relates to that?
So in particular, based on what I've only read from there, because I have not seen the building
Right.
physically yet, our understanding is that we're going to be reglazing what we can for the existing window systems,
Right.
Which is less of an issue than having to replace and rebuild a new stick frame condition. Once you're in the realm of rebuilding and reinstalling new window systems altogether, there's a potential for more masonry repair that needs to happen at the sills, jambs, heads of the project. Interior work that may also then arise for the interior sides of the sills and ceilings. It's all typical and standard. More so we need to assess that, and because we haven't seen eyes on it yet, based on the narrative, we're hopeful that what is there can be salvaged or rebuilt and repaired versus having to replace. Timelines on windows is still kind of tight, but it's been more so geared towards electrical and mechanical equipment have been long lead times more than anything else. I haven't seen any issues with windows. Doors in the past have been, but it's all been hollow metal, not aluminum.
Yeah, and I think windows are getting better, we're seeing. We're doing a big window replacement project for the Department of Labor and Training in Providence, or in Cranston. And we had an initial slowdown on receiving the windows, but they're picking up now, and it's definitely getting better.
Okay, that's all I have.
Hi, Bob Schmest. How much time do you think you will spend on your initial investigations, and who will be involved with that?
So we anticipate about a week or two, but actually being at the building would probably be a day or two, and then going back and kind of analyzing all the data we found, pictures, and writing up our thoughts and how we think we should proceed forward.
It also depends on the amount of available information that you already have. I also read in the narrative that there were previous, a roof job was done in '93, I believe, and there's some type of documentation at some point from that. Any documentation that you could hand over to us to start our initial review is always best, even if it's blueprints that need to be scanned in and redrafted, drawn. If there's anything available, that always helps, and it prevents the slowdown. That's not to say that we can't field measure and hand measure everything out there. We've also used,
Eagle View.
Eagle View.
Yeah.
They're a great company to use for, they take aerial shots of the roof in multiple angles and generate a set of base plans for us to field measure off of. So we would hire them if we had to, if there's nothing available, to start that initial process, which we would work from.
And that wouldn't slow anything down. You call them and they're out there the next day and they give you the plans right away. So it's not a slowdown.
It's a scanning process.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Bob? Okay, commission members, any questions? Ed?
Yeah. Have you visited the site?
No, not yet.
The RFP has quite a detail as to the present condition of the roof and the window wall and the entrance and so forth. What will your main target, the main target of your design be when you have a chance to really look at it in terms of replacing or refurbishing or doing whatever you would do? What are your main concerns in approaching that job?
So our main concerns would be kind of really looking at where the water infiltration is happening, if there is any, and kind of assessing the current condition. I think the goal would be to refurbish what is there to the best of possible, that if it's in good condition. I think that's a cost-saving measure that, if we don't need to replace it, why spend the money? But we would have to take a close look at really the damage that has been done to it, what damage has been done to the surfaces behind the window, kind of at the head of the window as well. But I think the main target would be to refurbish what is there. I think that's what the previous report had described.
So you would be bringing it back to its original condition?
Yes.
Do you see yourself improving the design over the original?
If we had if there was funding available and that was a potential option, we could incorporate, if we were reglazing, we could incorporate more energy efficient glazing. I think that would be the best course of action in the existing frame. That would help save on heating and cooling loads on the building. It's energy efficient improvements are always a positive.
All this is circumstantial, though, and until we have eyes on, honestly, to assess it, we can't make a full recommendation right now what the best pursuit would be for the window wall itself. But as you mentioned, the best case scenario would be to reuse what is already there, reglaze, recaulk, reseal everything as best as possible, replacing panes as necessary, both for cost, for future down the road potential damages. But if the window is past its life expectancy altogether, we would highly suggest that the best pursuit would be to replace it altogether. But with that comes the additions, as she had mentioned, both the interior and exterior head jamb and sill details, that potential for further masonry damage or interior leaks that we may find and need to be repaired, replaced as it goes. So,
Well, the windows are apparently all intact
Yeah.
from the photographs that you've seen those.
Yes.
But the structure, the wooden structure appears to be rotted. So what does that mean when you approach saving the windows? You can't save them and have the structure rotted away.
right, at that point, we would suggest to replace the system altogether. At that point, it's not worth saving rotted, damaged wood at certain sections when the entire system as an overall, it's only putting a Band-Aid on a corner of a section that may continue to rot internally that we can't see beyond us. It would probably be best to go in with a metal or aluminum system, or to match in kind with a new stick built if required, or for historical purposes, or what have you. So can be done though.
Thank you.
Any questions, ma'am?
Nope.
Jason, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Okay. That's what's your actual title, Jason?
Director of Facilities.
Director of Facilities, so he's the guy who takes care of all the buildings in the city that the school department has. So in any event, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you for your presentation. And as I said, we'll be deliberating later tonight.
Great, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Great, yes, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, nice to meet
you
you
as well.
too.
Dale, do you want to be the maitre d' again?
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Right here?
Yeah, if you have a computer that you want to put
Get a
something up on the
laptop,
screen,
get a
that's
flash
the
drive.
connection right there.
Okay.
And while you're setting up, we know you, you've been through this drill before, so you know you got about 20 minutes to make your case, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for questions.
Okay. Sounds good. Power plug.
Probably on the wall.
There's one up there.
Right behind you.
Should have had more outlets put in this room.
I know.
Excuse me?
We should have had more outlets put in this room.
Yes. Change orders is passed.
If we want people here, then what we have of these.
That's
but,
okay. Spread the wealth.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take one for us.
So we get two files tonight. We have the actual PowerPoint, which we'll zip through real fast, and we have the actual report from Barr and Associates, so we want to talk a little bit about it, right?
You got 20.
I get 20 minutes. Jack, 6:14, I go 1 minute, don't I?
You have an extra minute, yes, you can have 21.
Okay. Well, thank you for, can I start now?
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks for having us here. We'll introduce ourselves with a slide. I mean, for the roof replacement and outside curtain wall and restoration project, that's what we're here for. If we're not, then we're in the wrong room, right? So we don't have to go into too much. We've been around since 1946. We're RGB architects. We're out of Providence. And we don't have to go into too much of our professional backgrounds, sustainability and whatnot, because obviously we're here getting shortlisted tonight. We can answer any questions that anyone has for that requirements. There's us. This is Jason Iacobacci to my right, one of our principals. I do quality control, quality assurance. And we've got George Oliveira down below, who's our roof specialist. So we're all architects.
And our engineering team is McRitchie Engineering for MEP and Lim Consultants for structural and building enclosure sciences as a exterior envelope consultant.
So the next slide talks about a project approach, and instead of just going through slides of different roofs that we've done, which we've done over hundreds of roofs locally and around the East Coast, we wanted to talk about your project in particular and why we think we're better suited than the other two firms that you're interviewing tonight. One of the things we have is we have forensic architects. Jason is a forensic architect. So what is a forensic architect? That's a person that understands where the dew point is in walls. It understands why things leak, what they're detailed for, and Jason will get into more detail in a little bit about the report. So we just don't want to fix your roof and fix the curtain wall and fix the problems with the outside enclosure. We want to fix it so it permanently fixes. The reason why it's in the condition that it is, other than the roof because of the longevity, but a lot of the details we see in the wood curtain wall, the reason why it's done that is because it wasn't detailed correctly. And we'll go through some examples of other projects we've done that haven't been detailed correctly and have suffered the same fate. So what we like to do is go in there, correct it the right way so it lasts 50, 70 years. So we never have to talk about that again. Okay. So these are the, if you want to take the slide. I think
Yeah, these are some examples of, types of buildings that, and projects that we've addressed. So, we have a very wide range of project experience, which allows us to be able to have a very deep experience in terms of types of buildings, systems, and all the rest of that. For everything from academic buildings, such as something like this, to municipal, state, federal buildings, a lot of historic. We do a lot of repair with historic buildings, so unique detailing and stuff that involves with those types of projects. Of course, forensic investigation, roof maintenance practices, safety, drainage, sustainable practices. All of that, over all these years and projects, we take all of that and populate that into what we use for every single project. We bring that bench of knowledge to the table.
So what does that mean exactly? So you get things that are long lead items, short lead items, but you have unit prices. So you open up a roof, for example, and you have wood that's rotted. If you didn't see the wood, then that becomes a change order. So we put what they call unit prices on all these materials so that we can condition that price and you know what those prices are going into the bid. And you can control any change order you have. So we'll have a page to 2 pages worth of unit prices, and these are agreed upon union unit prices for various materials that we deal with in the roof. And we identify those early in the state of the project, so that again minimizes or mitigates any kind of cost estimates or change orders that you might have throughout the job. Our jobs stay between 1% and 2% of change orders, and that's what we usually range. We do quality control internally, which means that I look at a set of drawings different than Jason does. I mark them up different than Jason. There's 2 sets of eyes looking at them along that way. Additionally, the forensic analysis will tell us exactly if there's a bigger issue, and you want to look for the larger issue. If not, you're just covering over the issue that'll come back 5 to 10 years from now again. Okay.
Yeah, so we have extensive knowledge. We do a lot of work in Massachusetts, so we're always on top of all the most recent codes and requirements. And Massachusetts will be coming out with a new updated code here this summer, so that will potentially impact into this project. So, we want to be able to make sure that we're always on top of that. And Dave has the MCPPO certification as well for dealing with procurement and process contracts, all the rest of that.
File sub-bid.
And file
This will be a
sub-bid.
file sub-bid job. So this next slide talks about the roof replacement experience and why we're called roof exit forensic architects. So different various cities, we're in 18 different communities right now in Massachusetts alone. They come to us, the city of Fall River came to us, they had a library project, they put a brand new roof on, and they were still getting leaks, and they were wondering what had happened. How can that be? We went up to take a look, and sure enough, it was a brand new roof, and it was done right. So you found different things when you went up there, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the roof that was leaking. There was a lot of instances there that was either poor repairs that were done improperly, like putting sealant in all the mortar joints, where a building like this is supposed to weep back to the exterior. You trap all the water and put it back inside the building where you don't want it to go. There was also flashing issues, and there was some stuff that we were able to uncover that was never even installed according to the original specifications from 1896, which we were lucky enough to actually find, that the library had. So we were able to, and it was a problem that they had issues with for 40 years. So we've been able to go in and now do the analysis and find out what was really wrong with that, and that will be under repair here shortly. Same thing with Canton Library. Very similar condition, historic building, specialty detailing that needs to be dealt with, water issues that are also envelope as well as roof.
If I could step in here, both
Yep.
Canton and Fall River. Tomorrow morning, our guys are meeting out in Canton with masons. So we like to bring some of the trade contractors in early, so you can kind of get an estimate of what's going on. In Canton, you have these huge cornices that can come off by a crane, and you worry about what's going to happen when construction starts, the unknown. So we're going to actually take a piece of this cornice off to see what's behind it, how it's put together, and then try to estimate a cost to do the rest of the cornices right that and present that to the selectmen next week.
Yep, the Rhode Island training schools. What wasn't wrong with those buildings? They leaked actually from day one. They never resolved the leaks from the original construction on those. And those ranged everything from poor detailing to just poor construction, where the detailing was fine, it was just never installed properly. But you needed to do the proper investigation and understand where those water leaks were to find some of them. A lot of water testing and all the rest of that. And we were able to, I think we were there for almost 4.5 years on the training schools, which is 2 buildings, to resolve all the leaks that just kept manifesting through the buildings. One week we'd fix it, and then another one would occur somewhere else in the building, and it just kept going.
Yeah, water's important because you have to understand when water comes into a building, and this is with your own houses. If you ever have a leak in your own houses, you'll say, oh, it's leaking right there. Chances are it's not leaking there. So water does 2 characteristics. Water follows gravity and it follows warmness. So in a building like this, a masonry building, the water's going to try to go in wherever the warmness is. So you want to be able to identify where that's going to be. And of course, gravity. For example, if it comes in through the roof and hits a steel member or a wood truss, it's going to follow that truss down to the lowest point. Gravity's going to take over and drip it down. So we try to follow that back, and we try to isolate where it's coming from. And Jason will allude to in a couple minutes here with the report. The last model we showed you was condominiums in Stonington, Connecticut. These people contacted us because they read on our website that we do the forensics. We went and go check them out. And there's an older building next to a new addition. These people bought condos thinking, I've got this great historic building that I'm inside. What they didn't know is that the building originally burnt down. Once you burn down, all the caulking and all the material, the mortar between those joints, when it gets on fire, it dries up and loses its property. Water went right through it. So there was nothing holding back the water as much as they waterproofed the stone. So they had to take all the grout back out of the building and put it back in at a cost to the condo association. Of course, they turned around and probably sued the owner for that one. But we fixed the problem on that one. Those are 4 examples. These are 4 more quick examples. We've worked with the town of Somerville, Mass, doing the Vista parking garage. They had a problem with the deck, leaking on the deck and leaking on some of the buildings. The Regional Transit Authority up in Ayer, Massachusetts, had a very similar problem with the outside enclosure of the building. Smithfield Schools in Rhode Island had a very similar problem with a new roof, mechanical systems, and also leaks on their roof. And the Laborers International, we're doing both campuses in Hopkinton, Mass, and we did one in Connecticut. And the one in Pomfret, Connecticut was a historic type building, a lot like the school, where they were getting leaks on their roof and they didn't understand why. Inside of their windows were rotting, not the outside of the windows were rotting. how is that capable? The water was running on the jams on the inside, running from the top of the roof, following the rafter down, rotting the jam out from the inside out. So we were able to take a window out, identify that, fix the leaks, and then I got all the windows and products. Just like.
Yeah, so major milestones would be identify major tests and anticipated duration, long lead times. So when we would go through all of these items, we would identify all of these elements here as we go through the process. One of the things that we would do very specifically, I mean, you have the report here from Russo and Barr, but we would go one step further into this in terms of the analysis. You know, the report identified what was wrong, and you know, you're looking and say, okay, it's rotted here, there's water infiltration here and all the rest of that, but why is that happening? Why is that occurring? You know, why is it occurring in the manner that it's happening? And that would then allow us to be able to figure out the ways to be able to actually repair this. So there's actually like one of our first steps would actually be to do an analysis on this and come up with those types of solutions. And we would prepare the documentation accordingly for that, and then assist obviously in the bidding process with the OPM and administer contracts. So right through the process, we would be there hand in hand on this.
We get the report up?
Yeah. So we took a look at this, and you know, I wanted to really understand what was going on here. And there were some great photos that really were put into the report and stuff. And you know, we can see a lot of the detailing and a lot of the water issues occurring from everything from gutters and downspout issues that were there, improper flashings, even some masonry potentials there. There's a couple of photos in here that you know, looking at, and you can see some cracking in the masonry up around the flashings around the roof. So when we would look to redo the roof in that situation, we'd want to take a closer look at all of that masonry around it, because if we're getting any water infiltration in through the masonry, you can replace the flashings, which would be a normal standard process of doing the roof. You come in, cut in new flashings, but it won't solve the problem. You may still find leaks afterwards, right? So those would be kind of the areas that I'm not sure exactly which page that one was on.
There you go, right here.
That's one of the edge conditions there. Yeah, that's pretty clear evidence that you're getting water back up inside of your downspouts, and probably a flashing issue on the top of the gutter there, making its way down, rotting everything right behind it. You know, you got really tall downspouts on the building, so do we have heat trace down these? I know there's heat trace on the roof, but you know, when you have almost a 3-story tall building in terms of height, that's a very typical condition to occur, especially when you get the collector that's down below that, and this is only a small section. Makes it even more prone to freeze. You get freeze conditions, water backs up, that's it, it's going in. It's going to rot it. So you have to address that in 2 ways. How do you make sure it doesn't continue to freeze? And then how do you deal with the condition there that you can see, for example, real quick. Why would we want to? Right there, you've got exposed end conditions on wood. We would want to make sure that that would be detailed properly, so that way you would not have an end condition. End condition is the fastest way which wood will rot. That's where wood absorbs moisture the fastest. It's a capillary action process. Wood will naturally pull when it's in that condition. Yes?
So that's very similar to the other window. It's leaking on the inside of the window.
Yes.
Totally.
And that's being a wood window system there, which is basically a wood frame, structural wood frame that you've got your glazing installed in. So one of the questions we would want to look at closer when we go into that is, how is water mitigated out of that system? If it's only relying on sealant, we'll replace it, but it'll fail within 10 years. Sealant exposed to UV usually will never last much longer than about 10 years before you start to see it pull away. So the trick will be is, how can you replace that, repair it, and do any mitigation within there to make sure that you're not relying on sealant being your only means to keep the water out. Those would be the items that we would want to look at when going through this process. Do the analysis and then be able to come up with the detailing to make sure that that would happen.
One simple one, the curtain wall on it showing. You know, you have a page? Thanks.
Go to the roof one. the
You
roof,
just give me a page and I can go back this way. We got
you know, just some other
2 minutes
examples of
left.
some things that we would look at to address, which would be page 7.
6.
Yeah, there's a good one right there. You know, rotting wood on the cupola. So again, detailing around the cupola, and one good example of a detailing issue there is there may be flashing up underneath it, but there's no gap between the roof and the ends of those boards. They're vertical boards. There's nothing that stops the end grain condition of the wood against the roof. You would want to cut that up higher, you'd want to make sure that flashing was exposed, you'd want an end condition on that wood to make sure that that wood would not continue to rot, because if we put it back the exact same way or a similar condition to that, again, it will do the exact same thing once again. So these would be all the things that we would want to come in and do an analysis of right off the bat in order to resolve these issues, to make sure that when we're done, you get the best condition and you won't be worrying about it 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or even 30 years from now.
So when we look at this specific condition, I might said that water follows heat. So on a cold day, you're going to get water like a snow. It's going to build up against the perpendicular surface and the flat surface, making that snowdrift. The warm from the inside is actually going to wick the water in. So what we want to do is we want to put a counter flashing around that and stick it on the outside and stick it up in the air. So when the water comes in, it drains out. So it does a circular motion, and that keeps away from rotting the wood in the future. All those details, probably when that was built, wasn't around, but now they have a lot more materials and examples of materials of how you want to separate those materials out of that. Any other specific you want to touch base with? We're 1 minute over the 15 minutes this morning.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we could go on some of them. There's like the cornice condition here on 3, page 3. Again, these are just items that we see that we would, oh, that's actually a good one right there. You know, a simple condition there where you can see there's some flashing issues that you'd want to correct with the masonry, as well as making sure new downspouts would be properly detailed in, as well as drip edge conditions and stuff. You'd want to make sure that, you know, you have, well, one thing you didn't notice on the building that would also help with some of this is having more, the snow guards. Snow guards on that, which would also help some of this, but for example here, you know, that would need to be properly flashed in. You'd want to make sure that that would then be properly turned into this gutter and all the rest of that, and how that would actually be brought in and directed into this gutter to keep the condition. This is prime condition. As you can see, there's all kinds of ice management going on there, so it's obviously a condition that needs to be detailed and addressed properly.
We want to quickly point out, see this goblet ceiling right there? That's not a through-wall flashing. Through-wall flashing, you would notice, would go on a horizontal and vertical fashion around the brick. That's just applied. They screw it in, it's called like a termination bar, and they put a gunka sealant on top. It'll serve good for about 6 or 7 years. If you do have any kind of snow that accumulates on a hill over here during a storm, it'll find its way in through that mortar joint. Because that brick and that mortar joint separate and move at different temperatures. And that movement allows the flexibility of the caulk to work, as long as the UV doesn't ruin the flexibility of the caulk. Once the caulk isn't flexible anymore, it tears. That's why if you look at some of your houses and you look at the caulk, sometimes you'll see tearing, or you'll see rubber tires that disintegrate and they start tearing a little bit. That's what the UV does, and the water gets in there. So by putting the through-roll flash in the right way, when that sealant does break down, it still won't leak on you. We can go through each one of these things, but we don't have time.
Yeah.
It's 6:33.
We just wanted to be able to say that, you know, these are examples of things that we would automatically start looking at right off the bat in order to address and make sure that the repairs that we develop, you know, will truly address the issues that are here with the building.
You've got a beautiful school here, and you
Yeah.
put a lot of money into this school, and taxpayers pay a lot of money for these schools. The same thing with this project, just because it's an old building, you put a lot of money in it, you don't want to keep doing it over and over again. It's a beautiful school, it built really well, all the copper on that stuff is priceless, and it's still good today. It's just how you detail it, you make it last a long time. So that's our presentation.
Okay, well, thank you. We have an aggressive schedule for this summer, and based on what I've heard from you, you have a lot of investigatory work to do. How realistic is our schedule for getting this done for the opening of school?
I believe you asked that question. We went for the OPM job a little while back, and we told you it was almost impossible to make it to that time period of September. So what you did is you moved your schedule back to, say, May 17th, May 22nd?
I forget what it was.
May, beginning of May, middle May, to get the construction documents done. We have 25 people in our office. We have a staff. It's just not Jason doing the forensic. We have a staff behind Jason that goes out there and do that and that work, and we can detail that stuff. If that's your date, we'll make a date. So that's the objective. Now, as far as the analysis, any architect that presents tonight should be doing that analysis anyway. That's their job, is to look at that, is to analyze it, is to correct it. What we don't want to do is just assume we're going to get the drawings done and we'll see you in the middle of May. What we do want to do is come back to you, report our findings, and tell you how we're going to fix it, so that the OPM understands it, the potential contractors understand it, and anyone in the crowd here that is in construction also will either agree with it or go in the way we want to go. And we'll give you different options and at different cost points at that point. Once we get that clear direction, which should take about a week, at that point you give us the green light, and then we go ahead and do the working drawings for that.
Okay. I also want to ask a question we asked the previous applicant, because we try to ask the same questions of everyone, which is, we're probably a little late to the table for summer slammers. It'd be nice if the drawings were done now. Do you expect a competitive bidding climate with the schedule we've established?
Well, we can't get the drawings done now. I gotta be honest with you.
They won't be done tonight.
Right. We do expect a competitive bid. We're looking at the market changing. There was 1 million less jobs that went into the system last month than this month. I think it was 9.8 versus 10.8 million jobs different. So what we do internally is we forecast where the economy is going, because the economy is going to follow what your prices are. Right now, your labor rates equal the material rates. So when you have a lower or a slower economy, the labor rates will go down, and so will the materials, not as much as the labor rates do. So we're looking at that, and we see there is a slowing of the economy coming. We project 4 to 6 months for that to happen. We're ahead of the contractors by about 6 months. So contractors do the same thing we do. We've been around, the block a few times. We know what recessions are, what they look like, how long they'll be here. So you want to be able to identify. So we have a good rapport with a lot of contractors and subcontractors. Like we set up in Canton, we call masons that we know, and the masons go up there. We would do the same thing. We would start calling contractors in association with the OPM to see of interest, what interest is out there. And if they know about the interest and they know about the job, and you tell them about the excitement of the job, because believe it or not, there's some subcontractors who get excited over this stuff. You got restoration guys that really like it. They get excited, they have interest, those are the ones you want.
Okay, thank you. Antoinette?
My name's Antoinette Kelso. I am the program manager for the OPM Skanska, and I'm the one responsible for pushing the date back to May 11th. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
But,
we look forward to working with you.
That was all me. I do have a couple of questions. So you have been to the site, it sounds like, correct?
I have.
What scares you the most about what you saw? And by that I mean, what could potentially be a budget buster or a schedule buster?
Take a shot? Let me take a shot of that.
Well, we know that there's a fair amount of rot condition that's occurred in some of the edge conditions around the roof. I wouldn't be surprised if we find more. Whatever you see is not the limit of what's actually there. But it's hard to tell exactly 100% how much you're going to find. Those sometimes can be your biggest bugaboo, especially I think with the wood window system. That's kind of defined. I think that's pretty easy to kind of quantify. It's anything around the roof. Those monitors up there, the cupolas up there, and around your roof edges, especially where your flashings come down. Those will be your areas. I think that would be your biggest concerns for finding anything that was untold, right? And obviously we would put our eyes on it to try and identify as much as possible and estimate as best we can to it, but until sometimes you rip all those asphalt shingles off, you can't find everything that's there. Or even like that, for example, that one dormer that was up there. We know the outside's rotted. We're gonna rip that off. What else might be rotted further down? Until you rip that out, you won't know 100%. Yeah.
So there was a couple of budget numbers included in Russo Bar's, I believe in their
Yeah, I
their
believe it was in the back.
document there. It was 110,000, I think, for the window repairs, and then about 900,000, 2021 dollars. Does that seem realistic to you?
Let's see here, they had window wall system, they had the north window system was 10,000 and south window system is 7,500.
Oh, 10,000, I was wrong.
I
I apologize.
I don't think so.
You
I
don't
honestly
think that's
I think
realistic?
that's a little on the light side, to be honest with you. I think it's definitely light. The roof, maybe. Again, that's gonna be kind of what we find with rot, but I definitely don't think the window wall system number is, I think it's gonna be more than that, in order to do it right.
The other thing I looked at when I went around the building, but you want to look at these older buildings, if there's any kind of cracking in your bricks, any kind of joints that aren't supposed to be there, that's a sign of water getting behind the brick, which is pretty dangerous, because once the brick starts spalling, you don't know if it's shearing, or you don't know if it's just separating. Those old buildings were built with what they call tooth and brick. They build them this way, then this way, and then this way on top, and that's how the solid or the depth of the wall is built. So if that thing starts to shear, you've got bigger problems, and I didn't see any shearing going on, which is a good sign, which means that your damage is your wood. It's your water, as Jason said, the mitigation from the water, how it's transitioning rather from the brick to the wood, than the weakness of the wood.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
So you talked about unit prices will help to control the change orders and whatnot. What about like some alternate options, like, for example, the cupola up there? Just what would be something you would suggest, say, would we restore it? Would that be, just give me an example of something maybe that you guys could think of that would be like an alternate?
We did a state police barracks for this, Rhode Island State Police, and they wanted to go with Georgian style. This was a stand-up brand new building, and they wanted a cupola up on top. And we looked at wood versus prefab. You'd look at a prefab. We'd have to run that across historic to see if they'd okay it, but a prefab solution may be a solution, depending, like Jason said, how bad it is.
Or different materials. I mean, we can go with composite materials as an option. It'll be more expensive than wood, but it'll be lower maintenance, and it's that stuff, you know, if it's an autoclaved fiber cement product that's in there, or a composite product, it's going to hold up a lot better to the weather over a long period of time. You know, even if there's installation issues or whatever that might happen, it's going to hold up to water much better than wood will. But it's going to be definitely more expensive. But that can be options that can be available. Yeah.
And the last question I have is, I think you mentioned that you would assist with the procurement, like, you know, my question is, would you be managing the procurement, including writing the RFP, or would you expect that it would be a joint effort? And
Having an
if-
OPM, I would expect to be a joint effort.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but you would take the lead as far as the development of all the documents, writing the RFP. How do you put it out there? Is it like through a online form like Project Dog? I'm not sure if that's even used, that's what we had used for one of our big projects. So how do you do that?
We do OPM in our office as well,
Yeah.
so we do it either way. So we do it either in association with the OPM, if the OPM doesn't do it, or it's not underneath to your contract, and we take that over and we do it. And there's various different components you can put it out, whether it's Project Dog, or you
Yeah.
put it out in simple local papers. We try to find the subcontractors that are interested in the project and develop that kind of rapport with them, and we work backwards that way. The object is to get a good builder. At the end of the day, it's good builders to put this thing together the right way. Jason hit the nail on the head when he said composite materials. My recommendation is replace all the wood with a composite material. It'll look like wood, it'll act like wood, but it's not going to act like wood in a bad way. It's not going to shrink and expand as much as wood. It's not going to wick water like wood does, and it'll outlast all of us here.
Bob Jarvis, I believe the field manager for the project, Skanska. So my question is, how much staff time do you estimate you guys will take to do your initial assessment of the building? And who will be doing that?
To go out and do an assessment on it, it would probably be out there for probably a solid day to start with, crawling around the building and all the rest of that. After that, it'd probably be just a couple days worth of time at the most to really have a full understanding of what we're looking at. It's a fairly quick process. This is something we do very regularly, so we have processes and procedures and ways in which we know to look at. So when we're out there, it'd be a pretty quick process to understand what's going on.
Like in Canton, a problem with Canton was they told us during the interview, and they let us see the outside of the building. It wasn't until we went in there and looked at it, that one of the cornices is held up by a 4x4 on the roof. And this cornice weighs probably 5,000 pounds. So the roof is not going to support that weight if that 4x4 kicks out. And you could kill someone underneath. So one of the first things we said is, you got to clear the building and you got to support that thing a little bit better. We don't anticipate that with this building, because I've already looked around that building. This is really clear and dry what the issues are here.
Jack kind of alluded to the competitive bidding. Crystal ball question, how many bidders do you think you'll get on this project, if you would guess? I know it's a
The two of
guess.
us, we know about 5 or 6 restoration
Yeah.
guys that dump into this thing.
Yeah, I would think probably a 5, somewhere around there, would be an expected number.
It's having a firm that has a rapport. We do, I'm sure other firms do, but having that rapport with the labor is a good thing, because you can talk back and forth. They can also tell you how they're going to attack the job, maybe different than yours way of attacking the job, and maybe better, maybe worse. You may know things that they don't, and vice versa. So you learn from each other that way, and you learn initially for that reason, for how you would attack this job. What's the most cost-effective way? This is an active building. So how does it open? How does it close? How do you work within that active building? Summer slammer, as Jack said, how do you work within that summer period?
Logistics, planning.
Right, long lead items, are you gonna keep the glass? You wanna rebuild back that curtain wall, keep the glass and put the glass back in? Or do you wanna order all new glass? Right now, glass is a long lead time. So I would, if the glass is good, you wanna retain that glass and rebuild it back.
That's all I had.
Okay, thanks. Commission members. Ed?
Yeah, I understand you did visit the site.
I did.
Going to the window walls, what do you think the major challenge would be in approaching that part of the project?
Well, it's non-bearing, which is good. Some of the
Could you
traditional
talk a
curtain
little louder,
walls.
please?
I'm sorry?
Could you speak a little louder?
I'm sorry. So some of the traditional curtain walls, the way they used to make them, would make them bearing. These are non-bearings, they're infilled. So one of the biggest challenges I would guess would be is trying to rebuild that and salvage the glass and the condition of the glass and maintaining that during construction. The other thing you gotta worry about is how long as it gets opened to the outdoors. August is rainy season time, is hurricanes. How does that affect the schedule? What is it gonna do and impact it? So you ought to look at a second tier, a plan B. Plan A is, we do a summer slammer, by mid-August, you're in the building and we're all outside saying, what a beautiful job. Plan B is you found something or something happens, and how do you plan for that? That could be different ways of enclosing the building for security purposes and thinking that far out. That's the only thing I would be concerned with, is once you open the building, you expose it that way. I don't think the deck on this thing, it looks like it's still one layer of shingles on this thing, and I don't think the deck's in bad condition. We know through old buildings how thick these decks are. With the board, you still have to put what they call a recovery board on top. The recovery board is a 4x8 sheet. You'll see them put them right on top, and it makes it a smooth surface. And then you put the ice and water on top of that before you put the shingles on. Belts, suspenders all the time, so that you don't get leaks.
Is it possible that the window wall might involve ordering things that have a longer delivery time?
So if you went with an aluminum system, you would, right?
Well, if we retain that, and I believe the plan is, in terms of the schedule, would be to retain them, unless it's like really rotten and we don't have any way to really maintain it. I don't think you'll have a lot of long lead time items in that, because we'd be repairing with, it's a wood system, we would be going back with a lot of wood materials that would be in that, or a composite material that would be in it, and those are all standard, you can get them at the lumber yards, it's not really a lead time issue. And then if we were to change up and adjust any of the detailing in there, it would probably be things like brake metal, any types of flashing materials, all readily available materials. I don't think there's a huge lead time item in terms of materials to repair that assembly. I think that's all stuff that you can pretty much handle out of a standard lumber yard. So,
I agree.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
I do.
Mayor? Jerry?
Are you looking at replacing the roof with another asphalt roof, or are you looking at other materials as well?
Great question. They have a tremendous amount of materials out there right now you can use. They have rubber shingles that look like slate shingles. They have a great, what they call a Grand Manor shingle, which is a 50 to 80 year shingle. They have a regular 3-tab architectural shingle. They have a metal roof. There's various types of alternatives. We would look at lead time to find out, getting it done by September with your alternates. All those roofs I just mentioned all have great durability. We would never recommend a roof that's only going to be a 20-year roof.
Yeah, well, I know one of the requirements is a 40-year, and what we would do is we'd look at many of the manufacturers, depending on how you specify the materials, they'll add additional time and additional amount of coverage on reducing your amount of, what do they call that when the warranty, your labor warranty, the prorate on the warranty. So for example, let's say we buy Carlisle or we buy Atlas shingles or whatever it is, or GAF, you work with the manufacturer to make sure that the flashings, that the roof shingles, that your drip edges, all of that stuff, everything is all in accordance with how they have a defined system, and we can get additional warranty coverage on the roofs. So that can be a big part of making the right selection for what actually goes on there. Something like a metal roof, that budget that's in here, forget it, that's long gone. It's going to be a lot more expensive, although it'll last you for a very long time. We just did that for Narragansett Bay Commission in Providence. They had asphalt shingle roofs on it for years and years and years. They had issues because of exposure, blowing the asphalt shingles off the building constantly. And we finally said, guys, let's go to a metal roof on this. This is what you really need in this location. We did it. And they probably will never have a problem with that 50 years from now. But it was a lot more expensive than an asphalt shingle roof when we did do the analysis against that. But there's various ranges in terms of asphalt shingles that we can look at as well.
You know, Jason brings up a good point about warranty. So a lot of times we'll work with a roofer and we'll put inside the spec that they have to maintain it for an additional amount of time. And you want that. Most roofers will want that. It's a warranty period. Let's take this building. It's a brand new building. So the town father's right now thinking, I don't have to pay anything for this building. It's a brand new one. Unfortunately, you keep thinking that in 5 years and 10 years. Oh, it's a new building. It doesn't need anything. New buildings need as much as old buildings. They need maintenance contracts. And a lot of times schools don't maintain their buildings as good and as often as they should through budget reasons, or they take their funds and they put them in other places. So what we try to do is, as an option, and we'll give you that option, is you buy an extended warranty with the roofing company. So that the roofing company's responsibility is to come back every year or 2 years to maintain it. It's a minimal cost, but a lot of times it'll double your warranty on the roof.
Finishing it for the beginning of school is important, but I don't think it's as important as doing the job with the right materials and the right way. And you know, if the job slips a little bit past, I think that's a better alternative than putting a mark on the sand, so have to be done by this date and looking for an easy way of doing it.
Well, you can do a couple of things. There's a term called liquidated damages. So liquidated damages, or LDs as they call them, is you set a milestone. You say August 15th, if the work isn't done by there, you have to prove your damage. What is your damage after that day? And it may be nothing till September when they start school. But say, for example, it's $1,000 a day. So everyone feels comfortable that if they don't do it that period, you get paid $1,000 a day. But contractors and subcontractors also read into that, and they say, well, realistically, my fee is going to be higher because I have to offset that cost. So we look at alternatives to liquidated damages to get them down and get them done on time. One thing would be is a staged or phased approach, where you do a phased on the school, where you can still open some of it. In this way, if it's not done totally, then some of the school can open. Another way to do it is these are egress paths, these windows or curtain walls, is you write up a fake wall on the other one, or a duplicate wall on the inside, so that kids can still work, and they can work on off hours. And the third thing is overtime. If you plan it in advance and you know it's gonna be an overtime, you build it into the job, and you tell them that in the initial specs. So they're bidding that as an overtime rate. They're not giving you a change order as an overtime rate. So those are things we'll do an analysis. Once we understand the full scope of this building, we'll come up with various options that they can come back with.
Yeah, my statement wasn't geared towards just the contractor, it was geared to you guys too, as far as coming up with a design that is the best for the city, not the best to get the job done for August 16th or whatever the date may be.
Yes, the long game, basically, is what it is.
Right.
And that would be our
You know, the
recommendation.
city has zero maintenance, so long-term life expectancy is the key here.
Then yes, I would 100% agree that if you took a little bit more time to make sure you get that back on the back side of that, making sure that the job is done properly, and can take that very statement in as part of the overall analysis, say, okay, well, if we know maintenance is going to be a problem, well, then we want to avoid making sure that we have tons of caulking and sealant details everywhere and paint on everything, because that's high maintenance, you know? Okay, then we look at how we can get around that and avoid that, or mitigate it as much as possible with the detailing and material selections.
So what Jason means by that is, we were talking belts and suspenders, so if you flash something properly, you don't even need sealant. Sealant comes down later. So maybe after the school is open, it comes back later and they do sealant on the weekends or after hours. School ends at 2:30, so you can work in August till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So there's still a lot of hours you can still put into that. But we'll work with contractors. The objective is to not only make you happy, but make a product that we can someday put your product on a presentation and say, look what we did for the city of Attleboro.
And you have the building, I mean, like we said before, it's a beautiful building, so you really want to maintain it. I mean, there's some fantastic architectural detailing on this building, and maintaining that is, you know, it's just an excellent thing.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate you coming in. You can give Molly a call tomorrow, and she'll give you the verdict.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much for the time
Thank you.
tonight.
It's nice to meet you.
Same here.
And
Nice
sorry
meeting everyone.
about the schedule.
Good luck.
Thanks. You would have
We
done the same
understand,
thing.
we understand.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Great night.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Brought your laptop, there's a connection there in front of you.
I got it.
We ran a little bit over. Like I'd like to do is, as usual, give you about 20 minutes to tell us why, and have about 10 minutes for questions. And then we will deliberate after that, and if you call Molly tomorrow, she'll have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
This can go in here.
Pass out some cards.
Oh, thanks.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Get your steps in.
Hey, there you go.
Thank you.
Look at you.
Thank you.
There we go, good.
All right.
You're not, okay. I don't know. What do you think?
There was a bid opening, so I guess so.
So we have a PowerPoint, obviously, presentation, yeah. But we printed out like 6 or 7 so that you can keep notes on the side margins, but I didn't realize we were going to do this many here, so. Who's the select 6 or 7?
I think, why don't you put 2 over here and 4 over there?
Sorry about that.
Okay. I don't need one, we can let them share.
Yeah, I don't need one either.
And get Gail one.
Yeah, I'm all set, thank
All
you.
right, and then you can just give them around the table. Maybe give the mayor one.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
The screen says no signal.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it on this, on here. Oh, there we go. No, I know. It was. He was taking out. That was a minute ago.
All right.
But,
All right, put it on this.
you see over my head.
I can't. RGB.
Good, just making sure.
Okay,
I know it's.
floor is yours.
Thank you.
All confused.
So I'm Jim Russo, and this is Andy Barr. Let's see, so we were Russo Barr Associates for 22 years, and we've done a lot of work with you folks, as some of you know. And in December of last year, we were purchased by Socotec, AE Consulting. And they had purchased a Boston office about 4 or 5 years ago, CBI Consulting. So now we're all part of the same group. Andy and I are senior principals within the organization running the Boston office. So there's about 35 to 40 of us now. So we have some more capacity in terms of staffing. And our scope is building envelope technology, and then there's an architectural piece and a structural piece out of Boston. It's a pretty good-sized company. They're headquartered in the States in New York City. So we have a lot of access to any additional staffing that we may need. We don't anticipate any for this project, by the way. And so the whole Russo Barr company, our staff, stayed on board and have employment agreements and all that good stuff. So different names, same people, basically, in essence. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that, because I wasn't sure if there was any kind
And
of...
Rich is still with you?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Rich Corn.
Yeah, everyone is still with us. No one.
Same team.
Yep.
Same team.
We also have, and just to, the Socotec out of New York has a really strong energy team and code and things like that, so we have that to draw upon if necessary, particularly where the codes are changing in relation to energy.
A little later this year,
Yep.
actually,
Yep.
yes. So, yes, the same team that has been working on the Attleboro projects is assigned to this as well. And so Andy and I, part of the transition integration, so we have we're staying on board for a minimum of 3 years. So who knows after that, but anyways, we're on board for the duration, and we're actively involved, just like we were with Russo Barr Associates as senior principals. So Andy, so anyways, that's the introduction. So again, this is the statement of services that we provide as building envelope technology. In particular, that's the main focus, and that's what this project's all about, so the outside exterior of the buildings. Roofing, windows, all the way down to below grade waterproofing, and then in-house, so everything's done in-house. investigation phase, design phase, bidding phase, and then construction period services phase. So same team the whole way through, nobody new type of thing. No sub-consultants on this project either. So project manager, project principal, structural engineers Wayne Lawson, registered PE. If we need an architect, Gen Z will be involved as needed. Rich Gorham, as you mentioned earlier, as the assistant project manager, and then 3 of our technicians, Jack and Corey and David, will be assigned to this project as well. And so they're working in the field work with us, and they also will do the CAD work, work on development of technical specifications and the construction drawings. So again, it's all in-house. We've done a lot of roofing work over the years, designer for MSBA. Matter of fact, the old high school was the first green repair program under the MSBA that we were the designer of. We're also a commissioning agent for MSBA, so we look at other architects' designs. That's part of the process, and all the way through construction phase. So again, it's all building envelope, over 30 million square feet of roof replacement projects over a long period of time, primarily in eastern Massachusetts. We go out to western Mass, but our focus is Massachusetts. And I would say about 85% of our work is still public sector work, Chapter 149 construction, which this falls under. And then there's a kind of a listing of the different municipalities, over 80 different towns, cities and towns and school districts throughout the Commonwealth we've worked on over the years. So we have a really good track record. And our work is a lot of repeat referral work as well. So just a few slides to just kind of expand upon that, to explain. So we have a contract with the town of Brookline a few years ago. We looked at 80 of their buildings. I didn't realize they had 80, but they do, if you can believe it. So we looked at over 1 million square feet of roofing, and we put together a capital improvement program, which was 20-year spread out over that time frame and earmarked funding. And then as funds became encumbered, we got on board to do some projects, and one in particular was the high school, which is right in the middle. That was a big roof replacement project, and at the same time, a big masonry restoration project of all the exterior walls that were happening. So there were 2 separate bids, and we worked together with the contractors because, as you might imagine, there was a lot of coordination of efforts, and it was one of those summer slammer projects, so it was a very fast-track project. 20 buildings in the town of Andover. We continue to do work with them as well. A lot of roofing, 10 schools, $9 million in construction costs. Framingham, 14 buildings, 10 of which were schools, $15 million in construction costs. And these are all different types of roofing systems too, the low slope, the flat roofs, the shingles, the metal, slate. So we've had experience with all those different types. Town of Belmont, we did 20 buildings, 8 of which were schools, around $9 million in construction costs for roofing. Western Mass, Pittsfield, 22 buildings, a total of 11 schools. And again, we continue to do work for the city of Pittsfield. We've been working for them since the mid-90s. And we're actually involved with a school project right now, if you can believe it. One of their last ones that hasn't been re-roofed. Just this slide shows kind of a similar, well, not similar in many ways, but a shingle job. So they weren't sure what their budget was on this particular job, so we put together a base bid, alternate bid scenario, replace with shingles or replace with slate, complete replacement. Canton had 19 buildings, 7 schools, $6 million in construction costs, and then so the next slide. Okay, so here we are talking about some of the project particulars. Well, this is, before we do that, as you know, we worked on the 2 big schools, Brennan Middle School, middle school. Tear-offs, a lot of damages, through-wall flashing repairs, above flying masonry walls, metal panel replacement, and window repairs. So that was done in 2020 at $2.2 million in change.
God, time flies.
I know.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? Yeah.
We've been doing this about 40 years.
It's not 2022 either, it's 2023.
Yeah. We've been both doing this close to 40 years. And
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, really.
But anyways, okay, so why don't I turn it over to you a little bit here in terms of project scope, so I don't have to do all the talking.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is the Willett School, and it's, the scope of this, the intended scope of this is removal and replacement of the shingle roof. There's various deterioration on the shingle roof, and also fascia cornice deterioration, and then also addressing the, potentially the windows at the entranceways and some of the other wood framing, or wood trim, as we see here on these two.
Just to interject real quick, so as you probably know, we did the study, right, a few years ago, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years.
And we did a big water test up there with a lift. Jason and Rich were out there on that, and we got it to leak in a couple of different locations, so there is a severe amount of deterioration in there as well. So the plan is to do a refurbishment of the window system. Or there might be an option to replace, well, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously, we've got to look at it again, because it's been a couple of years since that report was done. So we want to look at it again to see what the condition is and whether it's, you know, structurally, whether the window wall is from a wood standpoint, is still okay, functioning. And then look at the options of whether it's try to refurbish it, strip everything out, restore the wood, or whether whether the time has come to replace it in a similar fashion, not necessarily wood, but with aluminum or some other products to do that. So,
right.
Yep. Now, the project approach, as Jim sort of ran very quickly through the way we do it, but basically, we start with a kickoff meeting where we review the studies and anything else that has been done, what the leak situations have been, more recently, and what maintenance has been done or any work has been done on them, so that we have an understanding of where we are, piecing it together from because we've looked at this building a couple times actually, and then do some additional investigation. We need to get up, take some of the existing shingles off, get into the attic spaces. Because there has been some, obviously, changes in codes, and there are more changes in codes coming as a result of the new energy code, and then to make some decisions as to how the insulation is handled on this. And
hazmat.
Yep, and take hazmat samples. So then we take that and we put that investigation together with a design development, and present an existing conditions report and typically design development at the same time, giving you recommendations for this is what needs to be done, here's some options, and here's some cost estimates for those options. All right, and from that we determine, meet with you, determine what we're going to do for a final scope, what the replacement is going to be, what repairs are going to be done, et cetera, and develop construction documents. Full construction documents will meet at a couple different phases along the way, typically somewhere 70–80% and then 100%. To review those, go over drawings and details, and then assist you during the bid phase with, depending upon how you want to advertise this, whether it's online with a bid docs or project doc type of thing, or in-house. Central register ads, assist with combis and local ads. Of course, we can't do combis because for some reason they don't think designers are supposed to have access to that, which is really kind of silly, but anyways. And then bids come in, we evaluate the bids, we review them, make a recommendation. We check references, make a recommendation as to who the lowest responsive bidder is, assist in the preparation of contract. And then once construction starts, review submittals, have a pre-construction meeting, and then as we move into construction, periodic meetings, whether it's weekly, every other week, whatever is appropriate at the time. Working with the clerk of the works, if there is one, which I believe there will be.
OPM.
Yeah, there's the OPM, right. That would be the clerk with the OPM.
Yep.
And then reviewing any change orders, any RFI, payment applications, and then punch lists and closeout paperwork. And the warranty phase, typically, we want to come out here at around the 11th month before the warranty, the initial warranty runs out. Of course, your roof system warranty will be longer. And then so that we can check if there's any issues at that point in time.
Let me just add to that. So during the investigation and construction document development phase, we are in the field doing a lot of hands-on work, a lot of test cuts. We're going to do fastener pull-out tests because we have a steel deck, plank deck, excuse me. So we want to make sure that the insulation composite board, so we have to do 2 layers, stagger it per the energy code, of course, and then a nailing surface. So we have to make sure that the distribution plates and fasteners, just like we did at Brennan, schools, so that we get the proper fastening pattern, because that's very important from a wind uplift standpoint. So we do wind uplift calculations in accordance with ASCE 7 internally. So that is, again, that's a very critical point. Hazmat testing is important too, just to make sure and document it. And then if there is hazmat there, we have to put it in the specifications. And then very detailed drawings and specifications. Now, in our specifications, 2 things I want to point out. One, we always require a licensed construction supervisor from the roofing contractor to be on board during the job, and that's very important as well, to have that level of management, so to speak. Somebody who's not banging a hammer and worrying about production, but more, well, actually worrying about production, but also making sure that at the end of the day, as silly as this might sound, but the nails are picked up so nobody gets a flat tire, that type of stuff. Make sure there's tie-ins done properly so that the building doesn't leak when they go home. Many of those items. So that's something that's very unique to us that we've always done and we continue to do. Also, we put in quantities of anticipated deteriorated conditions. And then we'll schedule on the bid form unit price for add or deduct. So what are we going to have on this job? We will have decking, plank decking. There'll be probably more components associated with the fascia and the soffits there, because we have to determine what's good, what's bad, so we got to give them some quantities there. Lots of times on flat roofs you have plumbing and drain leaders, but we've got gutters and downspouts here, so that's not so much applicable when you're going to be replacing the whole thing, I mean. And so then during the construction phase on a weekly basis, we'll have a running tab with the contractor knowing what those quantities are, and at the end of the job there'll be a net change order balancing the adds and deducts. So I think it's important that everybody understands that that's critical from a proper good design, so that you don't have to pay any extra money at the end of the job because something was missed. So we're very particular about that. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that. Thank you.
You want to touch on this one, Jim?
Okay, sure. So this is what we call our quality control. So I'll be the quality control manager on this. So we want to establish right off the bat the project goals, what the project budget is, what the project schedule is, with the assistance of Skanska as the OPM, of course, because that's what they'll be driving the train, so to speak. And we work very closely with them. And communication is very, very, very important. So you'll have our cell phone numbers, as you always do. Rich Gorham will be very active in the job as assistant project manager. I know the team is very pleased with the work that he's done over the years with the town, with the city and the public schools. So, and as many meetings as you need, whether it's in this kind of a venue or others, we'll attend. It's all going to be included. Any kind of presentations that are required, if you need any assistance with grant funding or anything like that, town meetings. So we'll be available for all of that. And then cost control. So again, in-house, we do our own takeoffs, estimates. We're going to give you some options, especially with the window wall. Shingle is the architectural grade shingles is the choice. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, in the town of Stoughton, they wanted to pursue the option of slate. There was an option discussed about metal roofing, but we said no to the metal roofing option. And then on a job out in Southwick, Massachusetts, the fire station, we used a single-ply membrane, which mimicked the look of with the decor profiles. So, we have the ability to do that and run the construction cost estimates internally. Of course, OPM, Skanska will be reviewing that and chiming in and adding their value there as well.
Good.
Okay, schedule. So we have an aggressive schedule there. Obviously, we have information already that we've gathered. Obviously, it's a couple years old, so we have to get out there and refresh it. But, you know, thinking that maybe you folks, you know, and again, it's not etched in stone, but, you know, it all hinges on the starting point. So if you can, you know, make a quick decision and get a contract in place or a notice to proceed, we're ready to start. We have the capability, we have the staff. We only go after jobs that make sense for us. And so this is a job that we really want. And so we elected to go after it, of course. And so if we start in early April, before the end of the month.
Actually taking advantage of school vacation to be able
Right.
to get up on the roof
Which would be really good to
and
do.
running around on the roof without worrying about kids pointing and saying, what are they doing up there?
Right. So we will have that first, what we'll call the design development submission in your hands, and then have a meeting pretty quickly if we can. I know there's different folks that are involved, and so that, sometimes these things slide a little bit. And then get the final design done mid-May and the notice to the Central Register on the 18th. Project out to bid on the 25th, pre-bid meeting on June 1st, and then a week later, we will have the bid opening. That is the anticipated schedule, and then summer construction. So, you know, before the construction, we'll have to go through all the submittal shop drawing phase. So on this project, so the supply chain, let's talk a little bit about that. Material availability is not a real big problem as much as it was a couple of years ago, and we all remember that when we went through the two-school project. So the products are available. We checked with the manufacturers. We will continue to check with the manufacturers. And by the way, on all our roofing jobs, we talk to the distributors and manufacturers representatives all the time because, you know, we're speccing out the products and we want to make sure that the products that we spec out are available in a reasonable amount of time. Only makes sense. If we make a bad choice, then that hurts everybody else. And then you talk about substitutions and value engineering, and so we want to try and avoid as much of that as possible. So right now, that's the good news. In terms of contractors available for this project, so during the bid phase, we will definitely be promoting the project to our contractors, just like we always have. And what does that mean? We call up the guys who we know are capable of this job, and we tell them, you know, we have a good job. And, you know, short of sounding pompous, we have a good following of contractors who like to work with us, and likewise, we like to work with them, because they understand that our process, we have a lot of processes involved with, you know, shop drawing submittals, critical path schedules, staffing, to make sure that they can do the job properly, tie-ins, and as I said earlier, you know, they have the magnet and they go around out in the parking lot and they pick up the nails, so you don't have any issues there as well. So we're very keen to that. And again, teaming up and partnering with Skanska on this job, they'll be doing a lot of that as well with us. So it's a good collaborative effort. So I know we talked a lot about a lot of this, but so we have the staffing commitments. You'll have the two firm principals involved all the way through from start to finish. The background of the staff, the experience, so registered design professionals. I have a registered roof consultant, RRC professional registration. It's a national registration. And then from a continuous improvement standpoint, we're always up on the code. Andy's very involved with the code and talking with the people in New York because it is going to change later this year. So we have to be aware of that because we want to make sure that the spec that we put out conforms to the new code as well. And then design standards, again, are always being updated. We design to Factory Mutual Research Engineering Corporation's design standards. We've been doing that for 100 years. And so we know the folks down there. They're right in Norwood. As a matter of fact, I've been to their testing lab and seen all the prototypes that they do. So we're very keen on that. And then from a continuous education standpoint, so we actually provide seminars to architects on occasion, but we also attend seminars by industry standard groups to get our CEUs so that we can maintain our professional registrations. So, you know, there's always new products coming on the market and things of that nature, so we need to be aware of what that is. Financially, the firm's fine. It's really good. And as I mentioned earlier, our workload is steady, but it's not overwhelming, and we have the capability and the staff to do it. And again, obviously, it's a very appealing job. We want to continue our relationship with the city and the public school system.
And for some reason, there's another in conclusion one, but it said the same thing.
A little less
Okay.
verbose.
Yeah, less wordy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I had two questions I had asked the previous ones, but I think you covered them, so I won't ask them again. So
Wow.
I'll go to Anjanette.
So,
My job.
so I think you answered all of my questions
Yay.
from the previous, but there were a couple of questions that I had. So
Sure.
what, in your original report, you had a couple of estimates there. Where do you think you are as far as the value, like, is it 20%, is it 30%? What do you think?
So we were in the $900,000 range.
Right.
Right, for all in. So, you know, you're probably going to be closer to 1.1, somewhere in that range, perhaps.
Yeah, we're seeing, whereas most people were carrying originally 3 to 4%, now they're going 15 to 20% in some instances
Yeah.
a year because of what's going on with our wonderful economy.
So, you did say that you have a large pool of prospective bidders that you could reach out
Yes.
to, right?
Yes.
So that's, you know, you say here there's gonna be painting, carpentry, roofing, tin knockers, labor, so you feel confident that there will be the workforce available to support the work?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
you do.
and that's a good question, so I'll expand on that a little bit. So the roofing contractors, commercial roofing contractors that will be doing this work are going to be DCAM certified, and they will have all of those guys available on staff.
Yeah, most of those trades are in-house.
Yeah.
So that was my question.
They're
So the
in-house
plan
trades.
is to have them
Yes.
GC it?
Right, a
So
roofer.
right.
Roofing
Right.
contractor will be the GC.
Will be the GC?
Yes, there'll be no GC with a fire sub-bid.
Okay.
No, it'll be a roofing
Okay.
contractor. Yeah,
Okay.
sole source.
Geez, you threw me for a loop here answering all my
Stumped
questions.
you.
And
It's my job.
the
I'm supposed to do
schedule,
that.
I was
Supposed to
like,
do that.
darn
You've kind of done
it.
this before.
Yeah, and the only other thing was just, you know, hitting all the milestones. I was very aggressive when I put together the dates and whatnot, but it sounds like it's not anything that scares you.
Not at all. No, it's very doable.
Okay,
Very doable.
what about the actual site itself? Is there anything about just the, I don't know, where it is, or is there anything that would scare you or give you, nothing scares you, I can tell, but, you know, as far as just sometimes the geography, whatever, there's nothing that would prevent the work from being done?
It
You know,
is
I
a
mean-
spread out site, just like
Yeah.
Brennan and Wamsutta was.
Right,
And so, and the key with those is just the contractor's gonna have to be moving around, and in some case, it is big enough that it can be done, and it's spread out enough that it can be done with almost 2 crews if they choose to, which helps in the time.
It's
the time.
30,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they'll do one crew.
Right.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
they'll do- Unless they
Work
really
their
want
way.
to bang it
Right.
out or whatever.
right,
but-
and it's in a community, and there's a little playground there, as I recall.
So that's the issue. So
Yeah,
there's a
right.
couple of issues. Residential neighborhood, so can they start early? Everybody wants to know, can we start early? It's up to the police, right, in the bylaws.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock
Yeah.
is it, yeah, 7.
They can start gathering at 6:45, but they better not
Right.
bang a nail before that.
Exactly, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Or start the lull.
When I raised my family in Belmont, we lived right behind a school, and so I'm very sensitive to that as well.
Literally right
Yeah, I mean, literally right behind. So, yeah, no, that is, I mean, that's a challenge. The other thing to point out or to talk about is, do you have any summer programs scheduled?
No, this building will be empty.
Perfect. Yep,
That's even better.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay,
Well,
so
sure.
Plenty of room for storage and all that good stuff. Yeah.
I too got most of my answers. Most of my questions that I had prepared for the interviews was the investigation phase. And you described it so eloquently in the writing, and then you added more to it before you
Thank you.
finished up. So
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm good
Yeah.
with the question.
Just to reiterate one thing that Jim said is, I mean, over the years, we've done this, we've been doing this for almost 40 years, but It doesn't mean, we still always do the investigation, because I still find times when I shake my head and say, I can't believe they did that, you know, even though I've seen it, you know, seen things, I still see things that I haven't seen before. So that's why we do the investigation.
No, it's very important.
Plus, you know, getting the proper scope on the
Yep,
documents
exactly.
is only gonna happen if the
Yep.
Oh, without a
investigation is
doubt.
done well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's
these
why
are
I was focused on that.
Job-specific details that we're drafting, they're not canned details from a shingle manufacturer. They're job-specific details, very, very detailed. And, you know, back to what I said earlier about the wind uplift, we're going to have a fastening pattern in there for the rigid roof board, composite board insulation products there. So, you know, that's critical from a wind uplift standpoint. It really is.
Good. That's all I had.
Okay, commission members. Ed?
Yeah, you mentioned replacement of the window walls as an option. I think you were first to mention that.
Yeah.
At what point would you decide that it would be better to replace it? And what changes would you make, if any, in the new design?
Really, what it comes down to is what is structurally sound in the window wall, okay? If it's structurally sound, and it's just a matter of replacing trim and adding some flashings and things like that, and potentially replacing glass if need be or not, then we try to keep it. But if we find, because one of the things that starts happening with wood frame windows, old wood frames, is that the weight of the glass, as the wood deteriorates, suddenly the glass is sinking down into the wood. Because that's a big hunk of glass, and it's very heavy. So that starts to happen. And there's nothing you can really do about that. Yeah, sure, you can inject with epoxies and things like that and stabilize it and keep it from moving anymore. But if it's already started to drop and suddenly you have gaps at the top and things like that, or it gets to the point where the insulated glazing unit is coming potentially in contact with something like nails and things like that, that will cause pressure points and suddenly the thing pops. You know, we need to look at that kind of thing. And, you know, if it's a very intricate design, like there's some storefront type things that we worked with in Boston, where the first floor is old historic stuff, you take the glass out, you repair it, you do a lot of epoxy and things like that, and then you put new glass in, and it, you know, those are the kind of things. But it gets to a point where you say, okay, from a cost, you know, standpoint, it's going to take more to repair it than it is to replace it. And but then obviously we need to talk to everyone, you know, and you people in the city, is there a particular reason why? No, we don't want to, you know, we need it the way it is, then we work on restoring it. But we can get a similar look in aluminum, and even with some fiberglass components potentially. And also very energy efficient. And, you know, that's, the new energy code, it is a lot more lenient on existing buildings than new construction, but it's getting tougher with the new energy code on when you start dealing with either replacing or major repairs to existing things that they start to want you to, but this is a small component of the building, so I don't think it's an issue. Just to touch on that briefly, the new energy code pertaining to roofs, the R value hasn't changed significantly. It actually has changed a teeny tiny bit, but it's really, but 40% of the area of the roof, which is south-facing, and there's a certain percentage of it, is supposed to be solar ready now per the new code. So that's, and what that means is first of all, they want you to add 5%, 5 pounds, I'm sorry, to the dead load, which we have to look at that, and so we have to take that into account. However, there's two exceptions to the code, the new energy code, both of which are if the licensed design professional feels that it is impossible to do on an existing building, that you just write a letter and say, it can't be done, it's not possible. So at least they're not forcing.
What would be some of those, like shading?
Well, yeah, shading
Right.
is, that's exempt anyways.
Okay.
I mean, if the building does, if there's tall trees all around it, they're not gonna tell you gotta cut down the trees
Right.
in the neighbor's yard or whatever to get it.
So there's some
So that's one of
practicality to
Yeah,
it.
that's the practical part of it. But it could be that, I mean, obviously historic is one of them, but it could be that structurally, it just can't be done. Or it would be cost prohibitive to do it. Because, I mean, the problem with these codes, with new codes is suddenly there's something minor that they tell you have to do and it doubles literally the cost of your job in some instances. So that just doesn't make sense. And what they, we've dealt with this with the PBRS before. But, so we're aware of those things and because that is going to come into play in this one, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, go on. You thinking of any other type of roofing materials other than asphalt, or?
Well, so as I mentioned earlier, the asphalt architectural grade shingles, they're the heavy duty shingles, and there's some really nice aesthetic appealing looks to that. We have done other different types of materials on steep slope roofing systems. Metal roofing is one option. We're not big fans of metal roofing for a lot of different reasons, and we'll present all this in the design development submission with the different options and tell you why. But basically, so a metal roof will shed the water, but with the thermal expansion coefficients, cold weather, then next day it's 70, and so things really move and pop. So you're relying on your underlayment, which is your ice and water shield at the below level.
A whole other waterproofing level below.
Right, which you'll have with the shingles anyways, but if you did want to, change, drastically will change the look of the building, without a doubt. So that's something that has to be considered as well.
Yeah, we have two buildings in, Jim had mentioned earlier, in Southwick, a fire station that we put on simulated standing seam. It's a PVC.
Now, they had
roof.
shingles before, so.
And actually, we're doing their town hall now, which is quite a large town hall, and they're going with the same type of roofing system there. Because that gets you your 20-year full system, single-ply warranty like you have on flat roofs like this. But then you get the ribs, so it looks like a standing seam. They liked it, I mean, and they really, because they were interested in the warranty, getting a real solid warranty.
But the things you have to, so with the metal roofing, you won't get that 20-year full system. So there's a lot of pros and cons.
Yeah,
right?
with the single ply.
But the single ply you will, but also keep in mind that, shingles have granular surface, and so they hold the snow a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
So you minimize your snow slides. If you have a metal roof or a nice shiny, slippery PVC roof, that snow's gonna come barreling down.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we gotta deal with snow retention issues, over egress and parking lot, and so there's a myriad of issues that we would definitely be looking at.
But we'll present them as potential
Right.
options.
We always look at options, or slate, if you want to go slate. But slate is a much more expensive option, without a doubt.
And it's heavy.
And it's heavy, right.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for coming in. If you give Molly a call tomorrow, she'll give you the verdict.
Okay.
The verdict.
The verdict. Very good, very good.
Too much legal talk lately in the news. I don't know why, but,
Okay, so before we deliberate, two things. One is Andrew had to leave, he had a family issue come up, so just so you understand, that's what happened with him. And secondly, do we need to take a moment's break? Do anybody need to stretch their legs, use the facility? Or do you want to just go right into our deliberation?
Really? As much as you'd like.
I'm sorry I answered all the questions.
No, that's okay.
You had good questions.
You guys, you should have come first, and then I could
Okay, we're back in session.
I thought they could.
So, it's been an interesting evening. As always, things take much longer than you think they will. I'm not sure if we may have been in recess before, but one of our members had a family issue, so he had to leave. But we'll carry on because we still have everyone else here. So, Anjanette, are you going to speak first and give us your thoughts and recommendations?
Sure, I would love to. I felt that all three firms presented very well. I feel that they're all very well qualified. I was impressed that two of the three firms had visited the school. I found it interesting that one of the firms was a little hesitant about the schedule. The first and the third firm didn't even, it wasn't a concern for them. Let me see what else.
In fact, they thought they'd be done by August 10th.
Yes, right. What was I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
I thought they all answered the questions, that were presented to them. And I don't think that, I think there's probably a best choice, but I don't think that any one of them would be a bad choice, if that's fair to say.
Do you want to share a ranking?
Do I want to share my ranking? I was very impressed with Russo Bar, Socotec, I should say. And then I really liked Rouse. I thought that they're local. I think they would do a really good job. So they would be my second, and then RGB would be my third.
Okay.
And that's just my opinion.
Is that the consensus of everyone at Skanska, or should I ask if Bob had any differing thoughts, or Dale?
No, I go along with Anjanette on the rankings, definitely. I thought Russ was very good, and I did a lot of the phone call referencing with Russ, and I got a lot of good things, and also with Soda Tech. I really felt comfortable. The only questions I really specifically asked was about the investigation, and Soda Tech nailed everything that I was looking for. The other two seemed to be dancing around how much work they would be putting in the front end of the project, which kind of worried me because of the fact that the scope of the work needs to be put in the documents, and if you're not out there doing a thorough investigation, you're not going to get the right scope. So I was very impressed with what they told us tonight that they'd be doing in the front end of the job.
Okay. Anything, Dale, you want to add?
No, I agree with both of them. And the thing with SOTAC, I think that meeting the schedule plus also doing the work, reaching out to the subcontractor market is huge. They have relationships, so to get them on site and meet the schedule, to me, that's the one thing that the other two didn't get on. No, I agree with Anjanette, Bob.
Okay.
And Soda Tech's schedule was in line with what I stated when we did our interview.
10 weeks.
Okay. Mark, I'm sure that you have a preference.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, I do. I would just point out to the committee that we have a long and successful track record with Russo Bar, Socotec, whatever you want to call it. The work has been impeccable. I don't believe, again, in my 15 years here, that the roofing systems in the district have been in the condition they're in now. We've always had problems. We don't have any problems anymore with jobs they've done. So I wasn't here for the first two presentations, but I can tell you that the outcomes of the work with Jim and Andy have been outstanding.
Okay. Jason, anything you want to add?
I agree with Mark. I mean, as looking back at past projects and what Socotec and Russo Bar has done, they're not problems for us. Here we are 10 years later on the elementary school projects, and they continue to perform as expected. And when we do have challenges, which is inevitable, you know, once you get into 10 years on a roof. They're incredibly responsive, they're still there to answer the phone and, you know, point you in the right direction if you have some challenges. So, as Mark said, an incredibly successful track record.
Okay. Jerry?
All three of them are more than capable of doing this job. It's not a hard job that we're doing here. The roofing part is the easy part. The more complicated part is the window part of it. I think Silvertech, first of all, we have a history with them, a good history with them. They got more detail on what they were going to do, the testing and hazmat, looking for hazmat items and all that kind of stuff. So I was impressed by them. I would rate them number 1, RGB number 2, and the third party number 3. But I mean, I don't think you'd go wrong with hiring any one of the 3. They're all more than capable of doing the job. It's a pretty simple job.
Okay. Jay?
History aside, I felt that presentation-wise and what was included in that presentation, Socotech stood above everyone else. So they would be my first ranking. My second ranking, actually, it being local, was actually one of my biggest attractions to them was Rouse for number 2, and then RGB 3.
Okay. Thank you. Ed?
Historically, and for this project, Russo Bar is way out in front, and it's not fair possibly to the others, but that's not why we're here. I think that there's such a clear choice that the other 2 are far distant. And they're the first to list replacement of the window walls as an option, and they brought in an improvement in insulation, which is one thing I was looking for. And one thing I didn't hear from any of them is an improvement in security. In this day and age, I think that that's a soft spot in the building, and it should be looked at in terms of student security. So, but regardless of that, I think that Russo Bar is the clear choice for me.
And your number 2?
Number 2 would be RGB, and number 3, Rouse.
Okay, thank you. Gail?
I thought they were all great and all could do the job. I preferred RGB. I liked their approach. I liked how he talked about, you know, the forensic analysis, and they really went over the report with a fine-tooth comb and kind of, you know, talked about their approach to the different areas, and they were very specific. But I didn't see that they had a lot of public school experience, but maybe I missed that part, or at least not in Massachusetts. I know they talked about Rhode Island a lot. But they were actually my first choice, but actually it's kind of a tie between Socotech, just for the obvious reasons. They have the experience with the city, and they've already proven themselves time and time again that they can do the work. But if I had to choose, I'd do RGB first, Socotech second, and Rouse third.
Okay, thank you. Terry?
I kind of feel the same way as Gail. I went back and forth between RGB and Socotech. But then you look at, we've already had experience with Socotech, and there's no problems with their work. So I would say Socotech first, RGB second, and Rouse third.
Jackie?
I have Socotech first, RGB second, and Rouse third, for pretty much the same reasons as everybody else. Our experience with Socotech, we haven't had any leaky roofs, as far as I know, at the middle schools. RGB did use Russo Bar's report as part of their presentation. So I just felt Socotech was better.
Okay, I always get to go last. I was not particularly impressed with Rouse. I thought their presentation booklet was excellent, but as always happens in these things, some people talk themselves out of things and some people talk themselves into things. So I had Rouse as number 3. I was very impressed with RGB's presentation and level of detail. I thought that they really hit on the forensics in a way that I hadn't heard before, and so I thought they did really, really well. But in the end, I'm going to put them 2, and I'm going to go number 1 with Socotec because they made an excellent presentation, number 1, but number 2, we also have the history with them. And now it's not only them, but now it's Arno as well. So it's the fire station roof. So I'm comfortable with them. So, for what it's worth, the mayor shared with me that was her same ranking before she had to leave. So therefore, adding up the numbers, Molly, you can confirm for me, but I believe that we've got Socotec number 1 and RGB as number 2, and Rouse as number 3. So therefore, a motion is in order to recommend to the mayor that we enter into a contract with Socotec.
So moved. Second?
Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to add something that, one of the other things about Socotec too is they don't use any sub-consultants. Everything was done in-house.
Yes.
And they also had the advantage where they did a study on that, so they've already hit the ground running, which is an unfair advantage to the other 2 companies, but that's life. It is what it is.
And Jerry, just to pick up on that, there was a question for 2 of them about, like, how much is in-house and how do you coordinate between the registered roof consultant or whatever the proper term was and the person in-house. So I thought that was an important differential too. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. So just to remind you all.
Gotta pay the bills.
We did. We paid the bills.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Did we pay the bills?
Yeah, we did. We paid the
We paid
bills.
the bills.
Is this our schedule
Jack said we paid the bills.
Yeah.
You're wrong, Terry.
So just to remind you, next week at City Hall is the COA feasibility study. The week after that, here for the school building committee. The week after that, April 26th, will be at City Hall for the public safety building. And then to make sure that we have 5 weeks in a row, the regular May meeting will be May 3rd, but we like to be busy.
We love it.
So therefore, a motion to adjourn is in order at 7:54.
So moved. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.